The stars trembled when the Zephyrian fleet moved through space. Their massive ships cut through the darkness like silver knives, each one bigger than most planets. For 3,000 years, no one had dared to challenge them. No one had even tried. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His tall body gleamed with blue and gold lights that danced across his crystal skin. These lights told other Zephyrians how he felt and what rank he held. Right now, they showed complete confidence and pride. He looked at the reports flowing in from across the galaxy. Every single species they had ever met had given up without a fight. The water people of the Andromeda sector had surrendered when they saw just one Zephyrian scout ship. The smart Voidwalkers had offered their entire civilization as a gift after seeing one. Demonstration of Zephyrian weapons. The Empire's way of doing things was simple, and it always worked. Show up with overwhelming force. Prove that your technology is better than theirs, accept their surrender. Fear was their greatest weapon, and every species in the galaxy feared them. Kethver remembered his first command 50 years ago. He had been a young captain then, nervous about facing an unknown enemy. The Crystalline Hive had built impressive defensive stations around their homeworld. Their weapons could cut through most metals like butter. Their shields could stop nuclear explosions. It had not mattered. One Zephyrian dreadnought had destroyed their entire defense network in less than an hour. The Hive Queen had begged for mercy through tears of liquid diamond. Now the Crystalline Hive served as engineers in the Zephyrian fleet, grateful for the chance to be useful. That was how it always went. Show strength, accept surrender, add the new species to the Empire. Everyone benefited in the end? Admiral, called out his communications officer Zertek. The patterns on his crystal skin showed excitement. Long-range sensors have found something interesting in the outer spiral arm. Kethver turned his attention to the display screen. The image showed a small section of space that their scouts had never explored before. Several star systems glowed with the signs of intelligent life. Ships moved between planets. Space stations orbited the worlds. Analysis, Kethver commanded, a young species admiral. They call themselves humans. Their planet is designated as Terra 3 in our databases. They are barely a Type 1 civilization. They only discovered faster-than-light travel recently? Kethver studied the data. The human ships were tiny compared to Zephyrian vessels. Their weapons seemed primitive. Their technology was thousands of years behind the Empire's standards. He had seen this pattern many times before. Population? He asked. Approximately 12 billion on their homeworld. Several million more spread across colonies and nearby systems. They have been expanding slowly for the past 50 years. Military strength? Minimal, Admiral. Their largest ships are about the size of our scout vessels. Their weapons appear to be simple energy projectors and kinetic launchers. No evidence of advanced shielding or space-time manipulation technology. Kethver nodded. This would be routine. Another species would join the Empire today. He felt almost sorry for them. They had worked so hard to reach the stars, only to discover that someone else already owned them. Prepare the Void Render for deployment, he ordered. Captain Zarmuth can handle this personally. One heavy cruiser should be more than enough. Yes, Admiral. Should we prepare the usual surrender terms? Standard package. They can keep their government and culture as long as they accept Imperial oversight. 40% of their industrial output goes to the Empire. Military service is mandatory for their young adults. The usual arrangements. Kethver had delivered these terms to dozens of species over the years. Most were grateful. Life under the Empire was peaceful and prosperous. They provided protection from cosmic threats and shared some of their advanced technology. Many species thrived under Zephyrian rule. The Void Render was a beautiful ship, even by Zephyrian standards. It stretched for 5 kilometers from bow to stern, its crystal hull reflecting starlight and rainbow patterns. Its weapons could glass an entire continent. Its shields could deflect the explosion of a small star. Captain Zarmuth had commanded it for 20 years without suffering a single casualty. The Void Render is ready for departure, Admiral, reported the tactical officer. Excellent. Captain Zarmuth, you know the procedure. Approach their main population center. Display our capabilities. Accept their surrender. Try to avoid unnecessary damage to their infrastructure. Captain Zarmuth appeared on the communication screen. His crystal skin showed calm confidence with hints of board routine. Understood, Admiral. I estimate this will take no more than 2 hours. These primitive species usually surrender as soon as they see our ship. Very good. Report back when you have secured their submission. The Void Render disappeared into hyperspace, leaving barely a ripple in the fabric of reality. Kethver returned to his other duties. There were supply reports to review, territorial disputes to settle, and promotion ceremonies to attend. The human surrender would be just another item on a long list of routine business. He spent the next hour reviewing patrol schedules for the inner worlds. The Murthai had been having trouble with space pirates lately. Nothing serious, but it would be good to show the Imperial flag in their sector. Strong leadership meant staying visible. The next hour passed in administrative work. New colony permits, trade agreements, and a request from the Voidwalkers for permission to explore an uninhabited star system. All routine matters that kept the Empire running smoothly. Then the emergency signal came through. Admiral, Zertek's voice cracked with something Kethver had never heard from a Zephyrian before. Emergency transmission from the Void Render. The main screen flickered to life. Captain Zarmuth's face appeared, but something was wrong. His crystal skin showed patterns that Kethver had only seen in historical records. Fear, genuine, bone-deep. Terror. Admiral, these humans... Zarmuth's voice shook. They are not like the others. We transmitted the standard surrender demand. They refused. They actually refused. Kethver felt his own skin patterns shift toward confusion. They refused? Did you demonstrate our weapons? Did you show them the futility of resistance? Yes, Admiral. We destroyed one of their small moons as a demonstration. They responded by attacking us. Their ships are small and weak, but they fight like nothing we have ever seen. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They keep coming. The transmission showed the battle raging outside. Dozens of tiny human ships swarmed around the massive Zephyrian cruiser like angry insects. They should have been destroyed instantly, but somehow they kept dodging the defensive fire. Admiral, they are using tactics we have never encountered. They attack from multiple directions simultaneously. They use their own damaged ships as weapons. They are... Zarmuth paused, his skin patterns shifting to deeper shades of fear. They are boarding us. The transmission cut to static. Kethver stared at the dead screen in stunned silence. In 3,000 years of galactic conquest, no species had ever boarded a Zephyrian ship. The very idea was impossible. Their hulls were impenetrable. Their internal defenses were perfect. No enemy had ever even tried? Admiral, Zertek whispered, what are your orders? For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kethver did not have an immediate answer. Somewhere in the darkness of space, a species existed that did not fear the Zephyrian Empire. The changed everything. The patterns on his crystal skin slowly shifted from confidence to something else. Something that had not been seen in the Empire for thousands of years. Uncertainty. Colonel Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the massive alien ship grow larger on his screens. The thing was huge beyond imagination, like a floating city made of crystal and metal. It dwarfed every human vessel in the system combined. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Carol Webb. It's in our language somehow. Put it through. A cold, mechanical voice filled the bridge. Attention, primitive species. You will surrender immediately. And accept integration into the Zephyrian Empire. Resistance is futile, your technology is inferior, your weapons are useless. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. The bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, experienced officers who had served in the colonial wars against pirates and raiders. They had never backed down from a fight, even when the odds were bad. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Amy Roberts from the pilot station, "Admiral Hayes is requesting a conference call with all ship commanders." Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the main screen along with a dozen other ship captains scattered across the system. Her expression was calm but serious. Everyone heard that. "Transmission, I want opinions." Captain Mike Chun of the destroyer Falcon spoke first. "Ma'am, I've run preliminary scans on that ship. It's massive. Our weapons might not even scratch it." "Then we make them count," said Captain Julie Anderson of the converted freighter Defiant. "We didn't come this far to give up at the first sign of trouble." Admiral Hayes nodded. "My thoughts?" "Exactly. Jake, what's your assessment?" Jake studied the tactical display. "It's big and it's scary, but it's just one ship. They're confident, maybe too confident. They gave us a surrender ultimatum instead of just attacking. That suggests they want us alive for some reason." "Agreed. We're going to try diplomacy first, but prepare for combat. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." The human response was polite but firm. Admiral Hayes transmitted personally. To the Zephyrian vessel, "We appreciate your offer, but we must respectfully decline. We are willing to discuss peaceful relations, but we will not surrender our freedom. We hope you understand." The alien response came quickly. "You have 1 hour to reconsider. After that, we will demonstrate the futility of resistance." Jake watched the countdown timer on his screen. 59 minutes and counting. Around him, his crew worked frantically to prepare for battle. Chief Engineer Sam Davis reported from the engine room that all systems were running at maximum efficiency. Weapons Officer Maria Santos ran final checks on their missile systems and energy cannons. "Sir," Amy Roberts called out, "I'm getting readings from the other ships. Everyone's spreading out, just like we practiced in the war games." Jake smiled grimly. The human fleet was small, but they had trained for this kind of situation. Not against aliens, but against superior numbers and firepower. The key was not to fight the enemy's battle, but to force them to fight yours. The hour passed quickly. At exactly 60 minutes, the alien ship demonstrated its power. A beam of pure energy lanced out and struck the small research station orbiting the fourth planet. The station simply vanished, reduced to atoms in an instant. "Message received," Jake muttered. "Amy, execute dispersal pattern Delta. All ships, this is Morrison. Time to show these aliens what humans are made of." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. The Zephyrian ship, the Void Render, was a masterpiece of military engineering. Its shields could stop nuclear weapons. Its armor could resist direct hits from antimatter bombs. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets, but the humans did not fight like a fleet. They fought like a swarm of angry wasps. Amy Roberts led the first attack run with her squadron of 12 fighters. The tiny ships, each no bigger than a bus, streaked toward the massive alien vessel at incredible speed. The Zephyrian defensive systems engaged, filling space with deadly energy beams. "Stay low, stay fast," Amy called over the radio. "Remember the weak points we identified." The human pilots danced between the alien weapons like they were flying through a thunderstorm. Ships exploded around them, but the survivors kept coming. They had studied the alien vessel during its approach, mapping its weapon systems and shield. Generators. Captain Mike Chun brought his destroyer in from below, firing everything he had at the ship's underbelly. The weapons barely scratched the alien armor, but they created a distraction. While the big ship turned to face him, Amy's fighters slipped past its defenses. "Target the sensor array," Jake ordered from the New Horizon. "Blind them first." The humans had learned something important during their expansion into space. Every ship, no matter how big or powerful, had weak points. Sensors, communications, life support, weapons control. Hit the right spots, and even the mightiest vessel could be crippled. The alien ship fought back with devastating force. The cruiser Manchester took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. The destroyer Phoenix lost its entire forward section but kept fighting. Captain Julie Anderson's converted freighter Defiant rammed directly into the alien ship's shield. Generators, sacrificing herself and her crew to bring down a section of the enemy's defenses. They're adapting, reported Maria Santos from the weapons station. Their defensive fire is getting more accurate. Jake watched the tactical display with growing concern. They were hurting the alien ship, but they were losing vessels fast. In a straight fight, they would be wiped out in minutes. Amy, are you in position? He called. Affirmative, sir. The boarding pods are ready. This was the desperate part of the plan. While the main fleet kept the alien ship distracted, a small team would attempt something that no species had ever tried before. They would board the enemy vessel and fight them on their own deck. Captain Mike Chun had volunteered to lead the boarding party. His destroyer was already badly damaged, and he had nothing left to lose. Using small stealth pods, he and 20 Marines attached themselves to the alien hull like parasites. Hull cutting in progress, Mike reported. Their armor is tough, but plasma cutters are working. The Zephyrians had never faced boarders before. Their ships were designed to fight other vessels, not to repel infantry. When Mike's team burned through the hull and fought their way inside, the aliens were completely unprepared. The fighting inside the ship was brutal and chaotic. The Zephyrians were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought in close quarters. The humans used grenades, explosives, and whatever weapons they could find. More importantly, they used the ship's own systems against it. Reactor room secured, Mike reported. Setting charges now. The Zephyrians tried to stop them, but the humans fought like demons. They knew they were probably going to die, but they were determined to take the alien ship with them. Every corridor became a battleground. Every room was fought for inch by inch. Admiral Hayes watched from her flagship as the alien vessel began to show signs of damage. Internal explosions lit up its hull. Secondary systems failed one by one. The mighty Zephyrian ship was being destroyed from within by a handful of human Marines. All ships, pull back to safe distance, she ordered. Mike, get your people out of there. Negative, Admiral. We're staying to finish the job. Tell my wife I love her. The void render exploded like a small star, taking Mike Chun and his Marines with it. The shockwaves scattered debris across the system, but the humans had won their first victory. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the wreckage of the alien ship. Around him, his crew was silent. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Half their fleet was gone, and their best people were dead. Sir, Lieutenant Webb said quietly. We're receiving transmissions from Earth. They want to know what happened. Jake thought about that. How do you explain to people that their first contact with aliens had been a war? How do you tell them that peaceful coexistence might not be possible? Tell them we met our neighbors, he said finally. And they declared war on us. The victory celebration was short-lived. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. The Zephyrians were sending reinforcements, and this time they would not underestimate the humans. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Kethver had never assembled such a massive fleet before. 300 ships of every size and class floated in perfect formation around his flagship. 5 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying planets, led the formation. Behind them came dozens of cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. The combined firepower could level an entire solar system. The crystal patterns on his skin showed determination mixed with anger. These humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed a Zephyrian vessel, killed Zephyrian warriors, and refused to surrender. Such defiance could not be allowed to spread to other species in the Empire. Admiral, reported his intelligence officer, Commander Veltar, our scouts have reached the human systems. The situation is worse than we thought. Kethver studied the tactical display. Where there had been perhaps 50 human ships before, now there were over 200. Explain. They have converted civilian vessels into warships. Cargo freighters now carry missile launchers. Mining ships have been equipped with military-grade weapons. Even their space stations have been turned into defensive platforms? Impossible. They do not have the industrial capacity for such rapid military expansion. Sir, our analysis suggests they have been working around the clock since our last encounter. Their entire civilization appears to have shifted to a war footing. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource has been dedicated to building weapons. Kethver felt his skin patterns shift toward confusion. In his experience, species that lost their first battle against the Empire typically began preparing for surrender. They would send diplomatic messages, offer tribute, and beg for mercy. The humans had done the opposite. What about their technology? He asked. This is the most disturbing development, Admiral. They have salvaged wreckage from the Void Render and reverse-engineered our systems. Their new ships show significant improvements in shielding and weaponry. The Admiral's patterns turned dark with anger. They dare to steal our technology? It appears they have improved upon it, sir. Their engineers work faster than any species we have encountered. They test new designs in actual combat, refining them based on battle results. General Kevin Walsh stood in the command center of the human fortress station orbiting Mars. The massive structure had been a peaceful research facility just months ago. Now it bristled with weapons and housed the combined military leadership of humanity. Admiral Hayes, Kevin said, looking at the tactical display. They're coming in force this time. Our long-range sensors show at least 300 ships. Admiral. Lisa Hayes nodded grimly. We expected this. After what happened to their first ship, they're not taking any chances. What's our status? We've managed to build 230 combat vessels, but most are converted civilian ships. We also have the defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. And our new weapons? Dr. Carl Murphy, the chief engineer, stepped forward. We've successfully integrated the alien technology into our systems. Our new shields are 60% stronger than before. The energy weapons have been upgraded significantly. The important question, said Admiral Hayes, is whether it will be enough. Kevin looked at the display showing human forces spread across dozens of star systems. We're not going to fight them head-on. Same strategy as before, but bigger. Hit and run, divide their forces, make them chase us. They'll expect that this time. Then we'll have to be more creative. Captain Julie Anderson commanded the converted cargo vessel Defiant II, named after the ship that had sacrificed itself in the first battle. Her crew was a mix of military personnel and civilian volunteers, all united by their determination to defend their homes. Captain, called her sensor operator, the alien fleet is splitting up. They're moving toward multiple systems simultaneously. Julie smiled. Good, they're trying to cover everything at once. That means they're spreading their forces thin. The human strategy was simple but effective. Instead of concentrating their fleet for one big battle, they had scattered into small groups. Each group would attack a different part of the alien fleet, forcing the Zephyrians to divide their superior numbers. All ships, this is Anderson, execute Plan Gamma. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them bleed. The battle that followed spread across half the galaxy. Human ships appeared from asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and empty space between stars. They would attack suddenly, inflict as much damage as possible, then disappear before the Zephyrians could respond effectively. The Zephyrians had never faced such tactics before. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and decisive battles. They were trained to fight enemies who would meet them in open combat, not guerrilla fighters who struck from the shadows. Captain Amy Roberts led a squadron of fighters in an attack on a Zephyrian supply convoy. Her ships, each no bigger than a car, darted between the massive alien vessels like minnows around whales. Target their engines, she ordered. Cripple them. Don't try to destroy them. The human fighters had learned that disabled ships were often more valuable than destroyed ones. A crippled vessel required rescue ships and repair crews, tying up more enemy resources than a simple kill. The psychological impact on the Zephyrians was devastating. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years through fear and intimidation. Now they found themselves afraid of shadows, jumping at sensor ghosts, and seeing human attackers where none existed. Commander Veltar reported to Admiral Kethver with growing desperation. Sir, we've lost contact with the 7th Battle Group. The humans appear to have lured them into an ambush near the asteroid belt. How many ships? 15 vessels, including the cruiser Starbreaker. There were no survivors. Kethver's skin patterns showed deep frustration. How are they coordinating these attacks? Our intelligence suggests they lack the communication systems for such precise timing. Sir, we believe they are using captured Zephyrian communication equipment. They may be listening to our transmissions? The humans had indeed captured alien communication devices from the wreckage of the Void Render. More importantly, they had Dr. Susan Clark, a brilliant linguist who had cracked the Zephyrian language codes. Human intelligence teams now listened to every enemy transmission, giving them advance warning of Zephyrian plans. "Admiral," reported Captain Pete Williams from the stealth ship Ghost, "we've intercepted enemy communications. They're planning to attack the Mars defense platforms directly." Admiral Hayes studied the intelligence reports. "They're getting desperate. Direct assault on a fortified position isn't their usual style. Should we reinforce Mars? No, we'll let them come, then hit them from behind while they're focused on the platforms." The attack on Mars was the largest battle of the war so far. 50 Zephyrian ships approached the Red Planet, their weapons charging for a devastating bombardment. The human defense platforms, bristling with salvaged alien technology, prepared to meet them, but the humans had prepared a surprise. As the Zephyrian fleet committed to their attack, human ships emerged from concealment all around the system. They had hidden behind Mars' moons inside the asteroid belt. And even in the shadow of the planet itself, the battle was fierce and chaotic. Zephyrian dreadnoughts traded fire with human defense platforms while smaller ships fought desperate duels throughout the system. The humans used every trick they had learned, turning debris into weapons and using their own damaged vessels as guided missiles. Major Nancy Foster led a boarding party onto a Zephyrian cruiser that had been crippled by platform fire. Her Marines fought through corridors filled with crystal-skinned aliens, using explosives and whatever weapons they could find. "Engineering sections secured," she reported. "Setting charges on the reactor core." The Zephyrians fought back with growing desperation. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to have no fear of death. Human soldiers would sacrifice themselves without hesitation to complete their missions. When the battle ended, the humans had won another impossible victory. The Zephyrian attack force was destroyed, but the cost had been terrible. Half the Mars defense platforms were gone, and thousands of human soldiers were dead. Admiral Kethver stared at the battle reports in stunned silence. His mighty fleet had been reduced to barely 100 ships. The humans, despite their losses, seemed to be growing stronger with each battle. "Sir," Commander Veltar said quietly, "we have received reports from across the Empire. Other species are beginning to rebel. The Murthai have attacked our garrison on their homeworld. The Void Walkers have declared independence." Kethver felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time in his long life, he was not certain that the Zephyrian Empire would survive this war. The humans, it seemed, had done more than just defeat his ships. They had shattered the myth of Zephyrian invincibility. And once that myth was broken, the empire built on fear began to crumble. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Veltar asked. Kethver looked at the tactical display, showing human forces scattered across dozens of star systems. They were like a virus spreading from world to world, infecting other species with their rebellion. "Prepare for full mobilization," he said finally. "Every ship, every warrior, every weapon. We will crush these humans once and for all, or we will die trying." The war had been raging for 2 years now, and the galaxy was burning. Admiral Kethver stood before the High Council of the Zephyrian Empire on their capital world of Zephyr Prime. The massive crystal chamber echoed with the angry voices of the Empire's leaders, their skin patterns flashing with colors of rage and fear. "Explain to us again how a primitive species has destroyed 60% of our fleet," demanded High Counselor Zexrin, her crystal form towering over the assembly. The patterns on her skin showed deep purple anger mixed with yellow streaks. Of disbelief, Keffer's own patterns remained steady, though inside he felt the weight of every defeat. The humans do not fight as we expected. They refuse to engage in proper battles. They strike from hiding, retreat when pressed, and return when we least expect them. You speak as if they are clever, sneered Counselor Mortek. They are insects. Crush them. We have tried, Counselor. Every strategy we have used against other species has failed. They adapt faster than we can plan. They learn from every defeat and become stronger. High Counselor Zexran's patterns shifted to deep red. Then perhaps we need new strategies. What do our intelligence reports tell us about their homeworld? General Tony Martinez stood on the bridge of the battleship Enterprise, watching the Zephyrian fleet approach the outer edge of human space. Intelligence reports showed the aliens had pulled ships from across their empire for this final assault. Nearly 500 vessels, including their most powerful dreadnoughts. General, reported Captain Alex Turner from his ship Aurora. Enemy fleet is holding position at the system edge. They're not advancing, Tony studied the tactical display. They're being careful this time, no more rushing in. They know we'll try to ambush them. Admiral Lisa Hayes joined the conversation from her flagship. Our scouts report they're scanning. Everything. Every asteroid, every gas cloud, every piece of space debris. They're looking for our hidden ships. Good, Tony smiled grimly. Let them look. We have new tricks to show them. Dr. Susan Clark had made another breakthrough in her study of captured Zephyrian technology. The aliens' crystal skin was not just armor and communication device. It was also connected to their nervous system in ways that made them vulnerable to certain frequencies. We can broadcast directly into their biological systems, she explained to the military leadership. Fear, confusion, pain. We can make them feel whatever we want them to feel. Colonel Nancy Foster, who had survived 3 boarding actions against alien ships, understood the implications immediately. You're talking about psychological warfare. Exactly. For thousands of years, they've used fear as a weapon against other species. Now we can use it against them. The human fleet had grown to over 300 ships, many of them captured and converted Zephyrian vessels. Human engineers had improved on the alien designs, making them faster and more maneuverable while maintaining their impressive firepower, Captain. Pete Williams commanded one such converted ship, the former Zephyrian cruiser Destiny's Edge. His crew was a mix of human veterans and alien refugees from species that had joined the rebellion against the Empire. Captain, reported his Murthi sensor operator, her aquatic features showing excitement, the enemy fleet is beginning to advance. They're moving in tight formation. Pete smiled. Zephyrians were learning, but they were learning the wrong lessons. They thought the solution to human tactics was better coordination and mutual support. They did not understand that humans had moved beyond simple hit-and-run attacks. Signal all ships, Pete ordered. Execute Operation Nightmare. The battle began like many others, with human ships emerging from hiding places throughout the system. But this time, something new happened. As the Zephyrian fleet moved to engage them, strange signals began broadcasting on their communication frequencies. The sounds were horrible to Zephyrian ears. Human war cries, victory songs, and battle hymns mixed with feedback patterns designed to cause pain and confusion in crystal-based nervous systems. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Zephyrian ships began to break formation as their crews became disoriented. Some vessels stopped responding to orders entirely as their commanders became paralyzed by artificial fear. The mighty fleet that had approached with such confidence began to fall apart from within. Captain Amy Roberts led her fighter squadron in an attack on a Zephyrian dreadnought, whose crew was struggling with the psychological assault. Target their bridge section. Their command structure is collapsing. Major Rick Johnson commanded a boarding party that used the chaos to infiltrate another enemy vessel. His Marines found Zephyrian warriors cowering in their crystal armor, overwhelmed by emotions they had never experienced before. Secure the engineering sections, Rick ordered. Plant the charges and get out. The human tactics had evolved beyond simple guerrilla warfare. They now fought on multiple levels, attacking not just ships and weapons, but the very minds of their enemies. The Zephyrians, who had ruled through fear for millennia, found themselves paralyzed by their own terror. Admiral Kethver tried desperately to restore order to his fleet. All ships switched to emergency frequencies, blocked the human transmissions. But it was too late. The damage was done. His fleet was scattered and demoralized. Ships fled in random directions while others drifted helplessly in space. The humans pressed their advantage, destroying vessel after vessel with surgical precision. Admiral, his communications officer, reported with patterns of pure panic. We're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships. Their crews are requesting permission to abandon their vessels. Kethver stared at the tactical display in horror. Zephyrian warriors did not surrender. They did not abandon their posts. They fought to the death as a matter of honor. Yet here, were his own people begging to run away from battle? The retreat was a disaster. Less than 100 ships escaped the human attack, and many of those were damaged beyond repair. The mighty Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to a broken remnant in a single battle, but the humans were not finished. Intelligence reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had been under Zephyrian rule for centuries were rising in rebellion. The crystalline hive had reclaimed their homeworld. The Voidwalkers had destroyed every Imperial garrison in their sector. Even the peaceful Murthai had taken up arms against their former masters. Captain Linda Hayes led a joint task force of humans and alien rebels to hunt down the remaining Zephyrian strongholds. Her fleet included ships and crews from a dozen different species, all united by their hatred of Imperial rule. Target acquired, reported her Voidwalker tactical officer. Zephyrian fortress on asteroid base 77 Alpha. All ships attack. Formation. Remember, we want prisoners this time. These creatures have information we need. The assault on the fortress was swift and brutal. Human Marines, supported by alien allies, fought through the facility's defenses. The Zephyrian defenders, already demoralized by news of their fleet's destruction, offered only token resistance. General Vexstar, the fortress commander, was captured while trying to destroy classified files. His crystal skin showed patterns of defeat and shame as human soldiers dragged him away. The Empire is finished, he told his captors. You have broken something that took thousands of years to build. The interrogations revealed the full extent of Zephyrian weakness. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption of military superiority. They had no backup plans, no alternative strategies, no way to cope with sustained defeat. Dr. Carl Murphy analyzed the captured data with growing amazement. Their industrial capacity is massive, but it's all centralized. Take out a few key worlds and their entire war machine collapses. Admiral Hayes studied the strategic implications. They put everything into building the biggest, most powerful fleet possible. They never considered what would happen if that fleet was defeated. The human counterattack began immediately. Strike forces hit Zephyrian industrial worlds, supply depots, and communication centers. The aliens, whose fleet was scattered and demoralized, could offer little resistance. Captain Alex Turner led a raid on the Zephyrian shipyard at Kepler Station. The massive facility had been building dreadnoughts for the Empire for centuries. Now it burned under human weapons fire. Set charges on the construction bays, Alex ordered his demolition teams. Make sure they can't rebuild. The destruction was total. Centuries of industrial development were wiped out in hours. The Zephyrian Empire's ability to wage war was being systematically dismantled by human forces that moved faster than the aliens could respond on Zephyr Prime. The High Council met in emergency session. The reports were all bad. Their fleet was destroyed, their colonies in rebellion, their industrial base under attack. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was collapsing. We must negotiate, urged Councillor Furtok, his patterns showing desperate yellow streaks. Perhaps we can reach some agreement with the humans. High Councillor Zexfrin's skin flashed with angry red. We do not negotiate with primitives. They are not primitives, Admiral Kethver said quietly. They are something we never expected to encounter. They are a species that cannot be intimidated. The argument continued, but everyone in the chamber knew the truth. The war was lost. The question now was whether the Zephyrian Empire would survive at all. The neutral space station hung in the darkness between two dead stars, far from any inhabited world. It was a place where enemies could meet without fear of ambush or treachery. Admiral Keffer arrived first, his remaining ships barely numbering a dozen. His once mighty fleet had been reduced to a handful of damaged vessels crewed by demoralized survivors. Admiral Lisa Hayes and Colonel Jake Morrison arrived an hour later. Their ships were battle-scarred but victorious, carrying the flags of dozens of species that had joined the rebellion against the Zephyrian Empire. The contrast was stark and painful for Kethver to witness. The meeting room was simple and functional. Kethver sat across from the human leaders, his crystal skin showing patterns that his species associated with complete defeat. The colors were muted, almost gray, reflecting emotions he had never experienced before. "We are prepared to discuss terms," Kethver said quietly. His voice lacked the commanding tone that had once made entire worlds tremble. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. "Before we begin, I want to make something clear. This is not a negotiation between equals. Your empire is finished. Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies are in rebellion. We are here to discuss the conditions of your surrender." The words struck Kethver like physical blows. In 3,000 years of galactic conquest, no Zephyrian had ever heard such language directed at them. They had always been the ones dictating terms to defeated enemies. "What do you want?" he asked. Colonel Morrison spoke first. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered worlds. Immediate release of all political prisoners. Dismantling of your remaining military forces." "That would mean the end of our civilization," Kethver protested. "Your civilization was built on the suffering of others," Admiral Hayes replied. "It was always going to end. The only question was how much damage you would cause before it collapsed." The negotiations continued for hours. The human demands were unlike anything in galactic history. They did not want tribute or territory. They did not seek to rule the Zephyrian worlds or enslave the population. Instead, they insisted on something far more revolutionary. "We want you to establish democratic governments on all your worlds," Admiral Hayes explained. "Free elections, representative councils, basic rights for all citizens." Kethver's patterns shifted to confusion. "We do not understand these concepts." "Then you will learn," Jake Morrison said firmly. "We will provide advisors to help with the transition, but the choice of government must come from your people." The final terms of surrender were signed 3 days later. The Zephyrian Empire formally ceased to exist. In its place would come dozens of independent worlds, each free to choose its own path forward. Commander Beth Roberts was assigned to oversee the transition on the former Zephyrian world of Kepler 442b. The planet had been an industrial center for the Empire, its population consisting mainly of workers who had known nothing but imperial rule for generations. The first elections were chaotic and sometimes violent. Centuries of oppression had left the population with no experience in self-governance. Different factions argued over everything from basic laws to the color of the new flag. "This is harder than fighting a war," Beth told her assistant lieutenant, Dave Phillips, as they watched protesters march through the capital city. "At least in war you know who the enemy is," Dave replied. "Here, everyone thinks everyone else is the enemy." But slowly, painfully, democracy began to take root. Local councils were formed. Laws were written and debated. For the first time in their history, the people of Kepler 442b had a voice in their own government. Dr. Gary Phillips led the scientific exchange programs that helped former Zephyrian subjects develop their own advanced technologies. The humans shared freely, something that amazed the galaxy. Previous rulers had hoarded their technological advantages. "Why do you give away your secrets?" asked Dr. Mailvar, a Zephyrian scientist who had joined the exchange program. "Does this not make you weaker?" Gary smiled. "We believe that lifting everyone up makes us all stronger." A galaxy full of advanced, free civilizations is better than one ruled by a single empire. The concept was difficult for many former imperial citizens to understand, but gradually they began to embrace it. Innovation flourished as species that had been suppressed for centuries were finally free to explore and create. Not all Zephyrians accepted the new order. General Vextar escaped from prison and gathered a group of military hardliners who refused to accept defeat. They established a base in the Outer Rim and began launching terrorist attacks against the new government's. Captain Linda Hayes led the joint task force assigned to hunt down the remnants of Imperial resistance. Her ships included crews from dozens of species, all working together to build a better galaxy. Target acquired, reported her sensor operator, a former Zephyrian named Tokrin who had joined the human fleet. Vextar's base is hidden in the asteroid field of the Omega system. The assault was swift and decisive. The Imperial holdouts fought with desperate fury, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Vextar himself was killed in the final battle. His dreams of restoring the Empire dying with him. Major Rick Johnson, who led the ground assault, found Vextar's body in the command center. The general's crystal skin showed patterns of rage and hatred even in death. "Some people never learn," Rick said to his sergeant. "They would rather die than change." The last pockets of Imperial resistance were eliminated within a year. The galaxy settled into an uneasy peace as dozens of new governments struggled to find their place in the changing order. The transformation was not smooth or quick. There were conflicts over borders, trade disputes, and cultural misunderstandings. Some worlds experienced civil wars as different factions fought for control. Others struggled with poverty and instability as they tried to build new economies, but gradually things improved. The Galactic Council was established with representatives from every free world. Trade agreements were signed. Scientific cooperation flourished. For the first time in galactic history, different species worked together as equals. Former Admiral Kethver found himself in an unexpected role. The new Zephyrian government, elected by popular vote, asked him to serve as their ambassador to the Galactic Council. His experience and knowledge of galactic affairs made him valuable, despite his role in the old empire. "I do not understand why they trust me," he confided to Admiral Hayes during a council meeting. "I was their oppressor for decades." "Because you learned," she replied. "You accepted that the old ways were wrong and chose to help build something better. That takes courage." Kethver's patterns showed something new, hope mixed with humility. "The humans have taught us many things, but perhaps the most important is that change is possible." The memorial wall on Earth listed the names of the 50,000 humans who had died in the war. Admiral Hayes, now the first Secretary General of the Galactic Council, stood before it during the 5th anniversary of the war's end. Representatives from dozens of species had come to pay their respects. Former enemies stood beside former allies, united in their commitment to preventing such a war from ever happening again. "We fought not because we were fearless," Admiral Hayes said in her speech, "but because some things are more important than fear. Freedom is one of those things, peace is another. The right of every being to choose their own destiny is worth any sacrifice." Dr. Susan Clark, now head of the Galactic Communication Institute, had developed translation systems that allowed instant communication between all known species. The barriers that had once separated civilizations were falling one by one. Captain Alex Turner commanded the exploration ship Horizon, leading missions to distant galaxies in search of new civilizations to contact peacefully. The galaxy had learned the cost of first contact through war and was determined to do better in the future. Jake Morrison, promoted to general and head of the Galactic Defense Force, maintained a small but effective military to protect the new democratic order. The force was composed of volunteers from dozens of species, all committed to defending freedom rather than conquering territory. On quiet evenings, Jake would stand on the observation deck of his flagship and look out at the stars. Somewhere out there were civilizations they had not yet met, worlds they had not yet explored, challenges they had not yet faced. The war with the Zephyrians had taught humanity many lessons. But perhaps the most important was this: the universe was vast and full of wonders. But the greatest wonder of all was the courage to stand up for what was right. No matter the odds, the galaxy was free, and it would remain free as long as there were those willing to fight for that freedom. The humans had shown the way, but now it was up to all the free peoples of the galaxy to walk that path together. The war was over, but the real work of building a better future had just begun.